All right, so are you ready to dive into the learning habits of, well, he's basically a real-life Tony Stark, Elon Musk?
Hmm.
You sent over this YouTube video, and it's called Elon Musk's Secret to Learning Anything Faster. And it's by Olivier. I have to say, I am fascinated by this guy.
Yeah, he is fascinating. I mean, revolutionizing space travel on electric vehicles, that's pretty remarkable.
Exactly. But here's the thing that really stood out to me. His views on traditional education, the video, really highlights how skeptical he is of, the standard classroom setup.
Yeah.
Almost like he sees it as, memorization Olympics instead of actual genuine understanding.
Yeah, it's more nuanced than that, I think. It's not just being anti-education. He's acknowledged the value of college, improving work ethic. He's even compared it to doing your chores. But he believes that deep, meaningful learning doesn't necessarily happen within those walls.
Which is wild considering he has 2 degrees himself.
Mm-hmm.
And get this, he dropped out of Stanford's PhD program after just 2 days.
Yeah, for 48 hours.
48 hours. What do you think sparked that decision? I mean, was it just a been there, done that feeling, or was it something deeper?
It really speaks to his conviction in self-directed learning. Musk seems to believe that true mastery comes from identifying what you need to know and pursuing it relentlessly.
And that's where his SpaceX story comes in, right? He didn't have a rocket science degree when he started. Instead, he tackled it like some people binge watch a show by devouring textbooks.
Mhm.
Is that even possible?
Well, there's a story about him cold calling Jim Cantrell, who was a top satellite expert, just to soak up knowledge. He wasn't just passively reading, he was actively seeking information and expertise.
So he was like a knowledge sponge, but reading alone doesn't launch rockets.
Yeah.
How did he bridge the gap between knowledge and application?
Well, he didn't just read about rocket science. He used that knowledge to design the Falcon 1, which was SpaceX's first rocket. It's a testament to his belief that knowledge without action is almost useless.
Okay, that's impressive. But was it just blind ambition, or did he have a method to this learning madness? The video mentions something called the semantic tree method. Honestly, it kind of sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
Think of it less like magic and more like building a solid foundation. Imagine you're learning about a tree. Would you start by memorizing the shape of every single leaf?
Probably not.
No, you'd start with the trunk, then the branches, then the leaves.
So start with the core principles, the trunk, and build out from there.
Mm.
That makes sense. But how does someone apply that to, say, building a rocket or an electric car?
It's about understanding the underlying principles of physics, engineering, and design that connect those seemingly disparate fields. Musk uses this approach to build a mental framework for understanding complex systems, which then allows him to innovate across different industries.
I am starting to see the method to his madness.
Yeah.
But where did this insatiable drive for knowledge come from? Was he always this way?
Well, it seems like he was always a bookworm. The video mentions him reading for 10 hours a day as a child and even finishing the entire Encyclopedia Britannica by age 9.
Hold on. The entire Encyclopedia Britannica? By 9, I was probably still trying to figure out how to tie my shoes at that age.
Exactly. It suggests an early and intense curiosity which clearly played a role in his later success. He's been exposed to a vast range of ideas from a young age.
That makes you wonder if maybe we underestimate the impact of simply reading widely.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of, just scrolling through our feeds, we should be digging into books more.
There's definitely something to be said for that. Musk himself recommends biographies of figures like Benjamin Franklin and Albert Einstein, highlighting the lessons they offer in leadership, innovation, and problem solving.
So it's not just about filling your head with facts, it's about absorbing the wisdom and strategies of those who came before us.
Absolutely. And it ties into his belief that knowledge is only truly valuable when you put it into action. He's famously said, knowledge is only useful if you put it into action.
Which makes his approach to problem solving all the more interesting. He doesn't just shy away from challenges. He seems to actively seek them out. Almost like he sees them as a puzzle to be solved.
He's even said, when you struggle with a problem, that's when you truly understand it. So it's not about having all the answers from the get-go. It's about embracing the process of figuring things out.
Which reminds me of something else that was mentioned in the video, his hiring practices at Tesla. Apparently, he doesn't just look at resumes. He focuses on how candidates have actually solved problems in the past.
Yeah, it's about seeing beyond the credentials and understanding how someone thinks critically and applies their knowledge to real-world situations.
Yeah.
He wants to see the process, the struggle, the aha moment.
So it's not about being a walking encyclopedia. It's about knowing how to use the information you have to create solutions. But before we get too deep into that, let's take a quick pause to remind our listeners to check us out on TikTok at Angie Podcast and our webpage at https://angieselfdevelopment10motivationpodcast.buzzsprout.com for more awesome content.
Right now, back to Elon and his learning secrets. So far, we've established that he prioritizes self-directed learning, focusing on first principles, and actively applying knowledge. But where do we go from here? How do we translate these grand ideas into actionable steps?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely unpack in the next part of this deep dive.
Mm.
Stay tuned because things are about to get really interesting.
Welcome back to our exploration of Elon Musk's learning strategies. So we've laid the groundwork, but now it's time to dig deeper into how he turns knowledge into real-world results.
Exactly. It's one thing to, read a bunch of books, but it's another thing entirely to use that knowledge to create groundbreaking companies and technologies. So what's his secret sauce?
I think one key ingredient is his relentless focus on problem solving. He doesn't see problems as obstacles, he sees them as opportunities to learn and innovate.
Yeah, it's like he's wired differently. I remember reading that he actively seeks out the hardest problems because that's where he thinks the biggest breakthroughs happen.
Absolutely. It's not about playing it safe. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, whether it's colonizing Mars or creating a fully sustainable energy infrastructure. He sets audacious goals and then relentlessly pursues solutions.
And it's not just a solo mission, right? It seems like he builds teams that thrive on this kind of challenge-driven environment.
Yeah, he fosters a culture of continuous improvement where failure isn't seen as a setback, but as a learning opportunity. He encourages his teams to constantly question assumptions and find the flaws in their own designs.
So it's about creating a constant feedback loop where everyone is pushing each other to be better and to come up with more innovative solutions.
Yeah, that's a big part of that Silicon Valley mindset, this idea of rapid prototyping and iteration. You don't wait for perfection, you launch and learn as you go.
Which is pretty inspiring, especially for those of us who might get paralyzed by the fear of making mistakes.
It's about reframing the way you think about failure. Instead of seeing it as a negative, see it as valuable data. It helps you refine your approach and ultimately leads to better solutions.
Okay, so we've got this problem-solving mindset and a culture of continuous improvement. But let's be honest, those things don't happen overnight. What about the sheer amount of work that goes into building these companies?
Yeah, that's where Musk's legendary work ethic comes in. He's notorious for putting in incredibly long hours and expecting the same dedication from his teams.
There's that famous story about him sleeping on the factory floor at Tesla during crucial production phases. Talk about leading by example.
That level of commitment is contagious. It sends a message that you're all in, and it inspires those around you to push themselves harder.
So we've got this incredible combination of factors: deep understanding of first principles, a passion for problem solving, a culture of continuous improvement, and an almost superhuman work ethic. It's no wonder he's accomplished so much.
But it's important to remember that even Musk isn't immune to setbacks. He's made mistakes, faced challenges, and had to pivot his strategies along the way.
Right. We often focus on the successes, but it's the failures that often teach us the most valuable lessons.
What sets him apart is his ability to learn from those experiences, adapt his approach, and keep moving forward. He doesn't let failure define him. He uses it as fuel.
That's a really important point. It's not about avoiding failure altogether. It's about embracing it as part of the journey.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a few key things to think about. First, embrace challenges as opportunities for growth. Don't shy away from difficult problems. That's where the real innovation happens.
Second, cultivate a culture of continuous improvement in your own life and work. Always ask yourself, how can I do this better?
And finally, remember that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process. Learn from your mistakes and use them to propel yourself forward.
Now, in the final part, we'll explore some specific techniques that Musk uses to absorb and apply knowledge effectively. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Elon Musk's learning strategies. We've talked about his mindset, his approach to problem solving, and his incredible work ethic. But now let's get down to the nitty-gritty, the actual techniques he uses to acquire and apply knowledge so effectively.
Yeah, one of the most striking things about Musk's approach is his commitment to reading widely and deeply. He's not just skimming headlines or browsing social media. He's immersing himself in books, often across multiple disciplines.
We already touched on his childhood habit of devouring books, but does that continue into adulthood? I mean, running multiple companies has to take up a lot of time.
It seems to be a lifelong passion. He still carves out time for reading, and he doesn't limit himself to just business or technology books. He explores history, philosophy, science fiction, anything that can expand his understanding of the world.
That makes sense, considering his emphasis on first principles thinking. By exposing himself to diverse perspectives, he's constantly challenging his own assumptions and looking for connections between seemingly unrelated fields.
Exactly. It's like he's building a mental library of knowledge that he can draw from to solve problems and generate new ideas.
Okay, so reading is important. But how can the average person apply that to their own life? Most of us don't have time to read a book a day, let alone tackle the entire Encyclopedia Britannica.
We'll start by identifying areas that genuinely interest you, even if they're outside your current field of expertise. Then make a conscious effort to read books, articles, or research papers on those topics.
So it's not about forcing yourself to read something you find boring. It's about finding topics that spark your curiosity.
Right. And remember, it's not just about passively consuming information. Take notes, highlight key passages, and try to connect what you're reading to your own experiences and goals.
Make it an active process, like having a conversation with the author. Engage with the material, challenge it, and figure out how it fits into your own mental framework.
That brings us to another crucial aspect of Musk's approach, active learning. He's not just a passive recipient of information, he's constantly engaging with it, questioning it, and testing it out.
Yeah, his journey with SpaceX is a perfect example. He didn't just read about rocket science. He immediately started applying that knowledge by designing rockets. It's like he learns by doing.
Exactly. He believes that true understanding comes from applying knowledge to real-world problems.
So it's not enough to just know something intellectually. You need to be able to use it to solve problems, build things, or make decisions.
Right. Think about a skill you're trying to develop or a problem you're trying to solve. Instead of just reading about it, find ways to practice and experiment. Build something, take a course, volunteer for a project, anything that will force you to apply what you're learning.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. We've talked about the importance of embracing failure as a learning opportunity. It's in those moments of struggle that we often have the biggest breakthroughs.
Absolutely. Remember Musk's quote, "When you struggle with a problem, that's when you truly understand it."
One final point that stood out to me in the video was Musk's emphasis on surrounding himself with brilliant and passionate people. It's like he recognizes that he doesn't have all the answers and actively seeks out individuals who can challenge his thinking.
Yeah, he's built teams of experts across multiple disciplines, and he fosters a culture of collaboration and open communication. He's not afraid to admit when he's wrong or to learn from those around him.
That's a great lesson for all of us. We don't have to figure everything out on our own. Seek out mentors, connect with people who share your interests, and be open to learning from others.
So to wrap up this incredible deep dive into Elon Musk's learning philosophy, what are the key takeaways you want our listeners to remember?
I'd say it boils down to three core principles. First, cultivate an insatiable curiosity. Be a lifelong learner, constantly seeking new knowledge and challenging your assumptions.
Second, embrace active learning. Don't just passively consume information. Apply it, experiment with it, and learn from your mistakes.
And finally, build a network of brilliant minds. Surround yourself with people who inspire you, challenge you, and push you to be your best.
It's a powerful combination that can unlock incredible potential, not just for aspiring entrepreneurs, but for anyone who's passionate about learning, growing, and making a real impact on the world.
Remember, it's not about replicating Elon Musk's exact path. It's about adopting his mindset, his curiosity, his determination, and his unwavering belief in the power of human ingenuity.
So go out there, embrace the unknown, and never stop learning.
Until next time, keep those learning gears turning. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next one to revolutionize an industry.